You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Damona Hoffman, unraveling the top dating myths in a new era.
Ladies, oh my gosh, this book, this author, every single woman who is single, and probably the dudes too, need to read this. I have Damona Hoffman on today, the host of the amazing award-winning podcast Dates and Mates, and now the author of her amazing new book that just come out called F the Fairytale. So Damona is the official love expert of the Drew Barrymore show. She has written columns in the LA Times, the Washington Post. She's a dating expert and spokesperson for so many of the top dating apps like OkCupid and Match and Bumble. She lives it. She walks the talk. She lives in LA with her husband and her adorable, amazing children. And this book, it really debunks a lot of myths around what everyone needs to know about dating in 2024. So I want to, before we even talk about the specific myths, I mean, when you think about, like you said, this has been a 3-year project. When you first were like, I need to write this damn book, what was the impetus? What were you noticing? Why did you feel like this F the Fairytale needed to come out in the world?
Oh, that's a great question. You're not starting with the softball today. I really felt like we were at I'm not going to say crisis point, Marni. I'll just say we were at a turning point in dating. So this was 2020 when I came up with the idea. We were actually in the beginning of the pandemic. I thought we were smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. Turns out not so much.
Yeah.
But I saw so much shifting during that time as people started adopting online dating, as the George Floyd protests were happening. I wrote an article for the Washington Post that went viral about asking people to examine their dating beliefs. It hit in June of 2020, and I was talking about race and dating. People were really in their feelings about that. I was also writing Date Lab for the Washington Post, which was kind of a he said, she said matchmaking column where we would send people out on dates. And I was just hearing a lot of themes politically coming up and the speed of dating. That's the thing that I feel like has shifted so much since the time you and I started beginning this work. And we both been in the game for a long time. But it was really feeling like all of these factors were causing a lot of confusion in dating, a lot of frustration in dating. And I felt like, having done this for as long as I really had a better way, I could help people build a better mousetrap and write better stories. And I saw that the stories that we were being told and that we had come to believe were no longer true for us. And so that's why it became F the Fairytale, because it seemed like that was capturing the zeitgeist of the moment and also giving people the chance to rewrite their own love stories in the way that they fashion themselves.
I love that answer. I was coaching someone, I think it was maybe 2021, 2022, but I just want to share this because I think it speaks to what you're talking about. So this woman was in her 60s, and we were talking about following up, just answering a guy back, letting him know you're interested. And she was like, well, you can't do that. That's not very feminine, And I was like, where did you learn that? She was like, well, my mom. And I'm like, okay, I'm not great at math, but if you're 60, that means your mom was probably dating. Anyway, we did the math, and I'm like, so that was 100 years ago? Literally? Oh, literally, right? Like, here we are. We're like women, 40s, 50s, 60s. We have all the, what's going on now. We have Me Too. We have the pandemic. We have all the shit that we learned from our parents and teachers, right? That they learned from literally folks like, the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And here we are in the 2020s going like, yeah, that's the way you do it. Like, I think this book is like a mandate. Like, hello, like we cannot, we have to understand that it's a different time. And so if you want to get a different result, then you can't live according to a set of rules that are hundreds of years old. Socially, racially, culturally, socioeconomically, damn girl, I'm glad you wrote this book. That's all I have to say. So I'm super excited to dig into it.
Yeah. And you're speaking my language, certainly. That's the thing and I've been tracking this as well, doing my podcast Dates and Mates and hearing the questions that come in where people say, can I initiate? Can I send a first message if I'm a woman? Can I, do I have to be more feminine to attract somebody? It's just these questions that we're asking ourselves. We want to do things differently in all the other areas of our life. We love the technology. And we love that it makes things more efficient. We love that we're making our own money as women and we are taking care of ourselves, which is an amazing thing. We love that we have choice. Marni, we didn't have choice. When your client's mom was dating, her dating pool was basically people within a 5-mile radius, people who knew her mom, people who went to her church. That was a closed circle. Yeah. Now our dating pools have expanded everywhere. And yet we're still playing by these old rules that no longer fit. So I feel like we don't get to have our cake and eat it too. If we're going to step into the dating scene of 2024, we've got to be ready for all of it. And we've got to be open to doing it differently.
I love that. So the first thing that I want to talk about is you have to let go of all of these beliefs, because in the story of the rules of the world in which you live, I've been reading, someone turned me on to all these really stupid fairy porn.
Oh, whoa, things took a left turn here.
I know, a court of roses and thorns. Anyway, but there's a world, right? You build a world, think of Hunger Games or Marvel Comics, right? You walk into a world, you watch this movie, you read this book, and you're like, this is the rules of the world. Okay. So if we're living in the rules of the world that are so old, then there's all this mythology. So what I love in your book is you've just sort of let's just talk about them. They're so freaking outdated. So I want to talk about my favorite one of your little list here. There's two. One is the chemistry myth, because that's you hear there was no chemistry. Do I have to go out on a second date with him? Why do I have no chemistry? He feels boring, blah, 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 blah. So let's, and then of course you've got in the fairy tale, literally, right? Oh, our eyes met. I knew it was supposed to be him. The passion. So talk about it. Talk about that with our audience here.
Both you and I know that chemistry is a myth. I'm just naming it in this book, the chemistry myth, because it leads a lot of us astray. And most of the people who come to me for coaching, and I imagine most of the people who are picking up the Fairytale, are looking for something substantial that may take different forms. And that's the other benefit of the great time that we live in. You get to choose your own adventure in relationships. Marriage doesn't have to be the end goal. You can be in a living apart together, relationship situation. You get to do it your way. But either way, if you are looking for something that is not fleeting, something that really has staying power, if you're guided by chemistry and you're chasing chemistry, particularly on that first 1 or 2 dates, which is when a lot of these connections drop off, if you're chasing that, you're probably not going to find what you're looking for. So I like to shift my readers and clients from chemistry to curiosity. When you're looking for curiosity on those first few dates, it's so much deeper, it's so much richer, and there's so much more discovery. And the other thing to say about chemistry and I really want to get your take on this, Marni. I feel like someone once said to me, you're responsible for your own good time.
Mm.
And I feel like we've given away a lot of our power in dating. Like, oh, well, if he likes me, well, then I guess I like him. Or if he wants to go out again, well, I guess I'll go out again. I don't know. He swiped right. I don't know. And I don't want to do it that way anymore. I don't want my clients doing it that way. I need to show up in a more intentional way. And some of that means, like I say, if it's not a date that lights you up, like it's something that you would want to do with or without that person, maybe you shouldn't be doing that for your first dates. Maybe you bring a little bit more of the fun.
Totally. Well, what's funny is, so I think this is how people are sabotaging themselves constantly, because they're saying there's no chemistry, but the way they're showing up, like either in the inbox or on text or on dates, is metaphorically, and I'll just do my camera down, well, is like this. Like, so are you an asshole or not? Like, are you my
resting, you know what face?
Yeah, exactly.
Arms crossed, body language closed, just
exactly. And they're like,
not here for it.
There was just no chemistry, or he didn't follow up or whatever. And so I think that when you say, we are responsible for the chemistry as much as the other person, just remember that and this is another thing you talk about in your book, is like empathy and the fact that there's a human sitting there. This is not the buffet at the Four Seasons where you just take a bite and someone will clear your thing and put it in the bin. That they're having their own experience of you on that date, and that you're as responsible for chemistry as someone else is. So when you see people making some mistakes in this area around that, what are some advice? What's some different ways to think about it that you can offer?
Well, Marni, the great thing about F the Fairytale is that not only do I identify the 4 biggest myths, but I realize that I've been talking about these 4 pillars of long-term compatibility on TV shows and on Dates and Mates for years. I identified that there's these 4 pillars that always lead towards long-term relationship success. And I realized as I was writing the book that the pillars were an antidote to the myths. So for the chemistry myth, the antidote is really clear communication. If you are communicating what you want, you are communicating through the body language, like you were just demonstrating, you are able to also, tell your story. You're a good listener. You're empathetic, as you were saying, and you can make a connection, both verbally and non-verbally. That is worth so much more than just that instant, I looked into your eyes and I forgot my damn name,
Exactly. Well, also, I think what's so interesting, I can't speak for men because I'm not one, but I also think that the mythology of that chemistry, I forgot your damn name, is from feelings we had when we were like 15, right? About what it's like to like someone, and then we're chasing this feeling that is like adolescence, right? And so when you think about like showing up in the anecdote, like being like clear communicator, being empowered, being authentic, being a great listener, being open, how is that like the adult version? Like what is it that causes people to forget that and just go for the like, I'm 16 again?
I think it's part of the being 16 again. And I think it's even another layer beyond that, as sometimes what you're feeling, it's a physiological response to that,
right?
Where they may be triggering a past love that you had and lost. They may be triggering a relationship dynamic you had with your parents. They may be triggering, I don't even know, like maybe there's like some past life stuff in there. I don't know.
Exactly, right?
But we don't really understand yet what we're responding to. So I do a lot of yoga, and I also talk about that a little bit in the book. And in yoga, we're taught to respond instead of react, to slow everything down. And similarly, I've been telling my clients for years, practice slow dating, slow down the interactions, take time to not just react to what's being said, but to sit in the space between, sit in that awkward silence. I was literally just talking to a client about this last week, and he was saying like, oh, it's so awkward, when I don't have something to say on a date and I'm just like sitting in that awkward silence. I feel like I want to fill the space. And he's discovering that that's where all of the interesting magic comes up, that if you can sit in that in between, that's where the discovery is. And we are so conditioned in our society to just respond, react, just keep talking, just fill the space. We're so uncomfortable with those pauses, those silences, those moments of reflection. And if you can bring them more into your dating life, it's amazing how it will transform the way that you interact.
I love that. And also that need to fill the space can be part of like a shield, right? Like if I just keep talking all the time, then I don't really have to be vulnerable because I'm just asking you questions and I'm making sure you feel comfortable. And I'm so good at like, creating a connection and like being interested. And often I think, especially for the ladies that I work with, they're so good at work and they can create rapport and they can like warm up the room, make people feel comfortable. And then they do that on a date and then they leave and they're like, well, you never asked anything about me. And I'm like, well, did you stop talking? Like,
well, y'all, we have a deep need to be liked, to be loved.
yes.
And I feel that social media has contributed to this. It's done us quite the disservice in chasing that feeling.
Yes.
And it shows up on dates because we feel like, well, I got to impress the other person. I need to get them to choose me out of all of these people online. I need to stand out. Here's all my stuff. Here's all the things I am. Let me get it all out. Here's the baggage. Here's what I do for a living. Here's my entire life story. And we don't have to do all of that. If we are focusing on authentic connection, first of all, it's going to be a more interesting date for you.
Yeah.
Second of all, you're going to show up differently and you're going to discover different things about yourself and about the other person. And, I also say enough the fairy tale that relationships are a mirror. And when I say relationships, both committed relationships and some of these casual connections, they're going to show you the things that are great about you, and they're going to show you the growth areas, as we used to say in corporate.
Right. That's so true. Okay, I want to talk about the soulmate myth for a minute because I've been like getting on my high horse a little bit about this. And I feel like you and I are on the same page, is that I feel like for ladies that are out there dating now, they're looking for like the next quick fix, right? Like, oh, it's like, do this and do like twin flame vibes, right? Like if you do this and you do that, that's your soulmate. If you do this personality test, that's your soulmate. If you do this, right? Like there's some like quiz, challenge, checkbox, magical potion, right? That will suddenly make it so clear. And it's almost like we're trying to remove the humanity around this really human experience that is a soul experience. Can you talk about like the soulmate myth, like that's just one of the mechanisms that we're like supposed to like buy into? Can you talk about that and how all of these quick fixes are sort of like undermining us and setting us up for failure long term?
Yeah, I mean, as a human race, we bought into the soulmate myth so long ago, Marni. It's been repeated in so many different forms through generations and generations. In the book, I trace it even back to its origins in Greek mythology and in Greek philosophy. I'm sure it's probably older than that. That was just
right.
that I could find it written down. And so this idea that there is someone predestined for you, that there's one person out there that is your soul match, to me, does not feel hopeful. And, even with the title, like F the Fairy Tale, I think people think it might be a cynical book, but this is a very hopeful book. And I want to restore that feeling of possibility for people. And the soulmate myth is something that does the opposite of that. When we're looking for this one needle in a haystack, to me, that feels exhausting. It feels improbable. It feels impossible. And it keeps a lot of people from that vulnerability, that opening up that you were just talking about, because we're like, well, I thought they were interesting, but I don't know. Are they my soulmate? So I'm not going to fully invest. I'm not going to fully open up because I don't know if I can see like the pearly gates opening and the confetti falling from the sky. And this idea of a soulmate that I have been sold for centuries, I don't know what that's supposed to feel like. So like you were saying a few minutes ago, a lot of people will write into Dates and Mates and they'll be like, I really like this person, but I don't know. Are they the one? And like they want a quiz, like you said, they want to hack because we haven't gotten in touch with our internal compass enough.
Right.
Trust that it is enough. That feeling of I am seen, I am loved, I am heard is enough, and everything else builds. You don't find your soulmate. You choose your soulmate. You show up every day and make someone your soulmate.
I love this because it has imbued in it the wisdom of someone who's been in a long-term relationship.
True. 20 years.
Right?
And we met online, Marni. So people were online dating even back then.
Yeah. Well, so and the reason why I point that out is because so in my expanded business now, doing more like life coaching, there's dating coaching. Like what I'm loving is I have all these clients that are coming back to me that I help them meet the man, right? And now they have the man, they have the kids, they have the job, they have the house, the renovation, and they're like, oh shit. Like, so that didn't make me permanently happy, right? Like now I got to work on the relationship. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a like whatever. And I think what you're saying is so important because if you just are like, well, I'm looking for this magical soulmate. And when I get that one, then, we ding, we win, the confetti falls, like you said, and then forever I will be happy. And that is the fucking fairy tale, right? And I think what you're saying, and that's why I said it's imbued with the wisdom of being together with someone for 20 years, is like, actually, you're looking for this person for your souls to go on a journey together and be a mirror for each other. And is this the person that you want to do that with? Because like most of your core values are the same.
Yeah. And you're so right. And, values and goals being two of the primary pillars, that is what sustains a 20 plus year relationship. And the curiosity, like I'm still curious about how my husband thinks and how he looks at the world. And that is an endless well that goes so far beyond just chemistry, where I'm just like, I just want to share space with him. And like you said, be on this journey because like I say in the book that the end of one escalator is just the beginning of another escalator. But we can't be so focused on the destination that we're missing what's happening in the middle, because this is the stuff. And because of all the rom-coms and fairy tales, we thought there was a happily ever after, that the story just ended and that was that was it. We closed the book. But no, the story just keeps on going. And I find that actually very, very exciting. I know some people feel like I hear sometimes exhaustion from people where they're like, oh, I have to do all these things. So Damona, you're saying I gotta prepare to meet my person. I gotta get my mindset right. I've got to get my strategy right to find the person. And then I got to show up on the date and do all this stuff and the preparation and thing. And then I get into the relationship. And now now I have to do extra. But, I say enough to Fairytale that even the phrase relationships are work, that's a myth. Because it's not the kind of work where you're punching a clock. It's the kind of work like you and I do where we cannot wait to get there and serve and show up and go through it with the people that we're working with.
Yeah, because I always think like this is life, a fun house sort of, right? Like where you're just like having experiences that reflect back to you the next like growth level for you of you get to be more of you. And so every date, which I think is an important part of what you're talking about, is every date is just an opportunity to do that. So is it work? I mean, do you want to show up for your life or do you just want to go unconscious and fucking watch Netflix? I mean, you really get to choose how you want to experience your life. And when you say like, oh, it's not a fairy tale, it actually just requires me to show up and be my best self every day. Do you want to choose that or not? Because you can always just, it is a variety of choices that are pretty much all accepted at this point. You can do it how you want to do it, right? So what's the choice? Okay, here's the other thing I have to ask you about. Because back when I first started and I was going to write a dating book, which I did not sell a million years ago, I talked about the rules, right? Like the rules. And that was like literally written in the 80s, I think, if I remember correctly.
93.
93. Okay.
Let me reference.
Yeah, right?
I do reference it in the book.
Yeah, because it's like epic, right? The rules.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're 50, you're
95.
like 95. Okay. So when you're 57 like me, you forget that 95 wasn't 5 years ago. It was it was 28 years ago. I have a daughter who's 28. She was born in 95. However, just like we were talking about my client following the rules that her mom had, the rules, bless that woman who wrote that book, they are alive and kicking. So why do we need to love you, honey, but throw that book away? And I think she did write did she write an update?
Yes.
She did.
There were a couple follow-ups. And I talk about that as it relates to the rules myth. And there were others, for the guys, there was the game and pickup artistry. And I even rope in The Bachelor into all of these, the gamification of love.
Yes, I love it.
And I give a full props to the rules. What I loved about it, Marni, is that it made women feel like they had some power and control over what happened in their love lives for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. And we need that at that time. But like even like the subtitle is like time-tested secrets for getting the ring or something like that. And it's like, if that's not even your end goal, like why are you following the old playbook? If you don't get to change the end of the equation and expect to change the result you're solving for and not change the rest of the equation.
Right.
It's time for an update. And I think those books and those strategies definitely had their place. And there's still some advice in them that I still think is really valuable. But I think we need to step away from the rigidity. And that's really what dating in 2024 calls for. The rigidity of like, it has to be this way. I hear a lot of this from my clients and my listeners on Dates and Mates. Like, well, I won't go here for a date. I can't make the first call. I won't make the first move. We've taken the rules and we've made our own rules. And a lot of times those rules actually keep us more stuck than make us expensive. I mean, even look at on TikTok that there are like 29 places women don't want to go on a first date. And it was literally like everywhere. It was every restaurant is like Cheesecake Factory, like any chain restaurant, a buffet, like everything. And then it was like ice cream, coffee, just drinks. I'm like, no, let's stop with the red flags. Let's stop with the no's. Let's stop with the can'ts, and let's look for solutions because they're out there.
I had a client once who went out on a date with someone This is a while back. And she was like, he's out. I'm like, why? She's like, Starbucks? Really? That's the best he could do? Starbucks? And I was like, huh, that's interesting. Well, let's talk about like why Starbucks could have been like his best effort. Anyway, upon research and reflection, the reason why the guy chose the Starbucks was because she had said that she was getting off work kind of late and he wanted to pick a place that was super easy for her. So he just picked like a Starbucks because it was like literally like down a few buildings from her office. And right, like he was trying to be helpful and make it easy. And she was like, I'm not going out with him again. And I was like, and so here's the thing. I think the rules make people have a sense of certainty when dating is an uncertain game. And so it's a big cover up for not wanting to be in control. So why can't we just can't control it, right? Deona, like what do you talk about in your book about like why all these myths and rules are here?
Oh, I love that story, Marni. And I've heard it in different iterations so many times because, like I've done Dates and Mates episodes on the ick. Like somebody does one thing and you're like, ew, no, that's it. And I think the answer to most of these questions is empathy and getting that understanding like you did about, well, why the Starbucks? Because also maybe he went on a date with somebody else that was like, I can't do dinner. That's too much time, which is kind of my recommendation. But it's all tools, no rules. It's all tools in my book. Yeah. But let's say somebody else was like, no, just meet me at Starbucks. So he's like, okay, so women like Starbucks. Like his information gathering may not be as thorough, or he may be playing by his own rule book or his own set of rules. But it comes back to what we were saying earlier about don't say yes to the thing that you don't want to do, and you be responsible for your own good time. So she didn't want to go to Starbucks. She probably should have said, let's not go to Starbucks, actually. And that's another thing that was so different when I was dating. And I always had this like, look, I'm in control of my dating destiny. I'm responsible for my own good time. So I would suggest dates all the time. Like I had my circuit of places that I liked to go, and it was, I didn't have a rule that said I couldn't make the suggestion. And it was funny to me when I discovered that there were so many women that were living by a different rule book that, no, he has to do all the planning. And he has to like tell me where to meet and what time, and you do all the planning. But then you're going to show up and be mad about the place that he picked. I'm like, just tell him where you want to go. It's so much easier than we make it, Marni.
Half the time people are asking me like, what should I say? And I'm like, well, what do you want to say? And then they say it. And I'm like, well, just say that. I'm like, that sounds pretty clear to me. It's funny. My editor, I'm like, writing the stuff. And he's like, well, explain that to me. And then I say it. And he's like, well, just say that. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Last thing is this. Like, if you were going to talk about new year, new love, new possibility, and I love that you have really come out here to say, like, I'm an evangelist for the possibility of love. And I just think, like, women need that, right? There's so many women who go, so how's it going? Like your tribe. Like, if you're sitting around at your Sex and the City brunch talking about how the latest like catfish or douchebag that you went out on a date with, or your friends are like, yeah, I've heard it's hard. You need an evangelist. You need that voice in your life saying, absolutely possible, 100% possible. Be responsible for your own fun. Like, let's do it. I love that you're taking that role. So what do these women, what's the fucking call to action? Like, how do we take the call to adventure and go on this ride to share your life with someone?
Well, I just want to acknowledge what you just said. It's funny, Marni, because I was thinking like I should change my title to Love Evangelist. And You just nailed it right there, because that's really what I feel like I'm doing. And also, I'm a love evangelist for anyone at any age, because I know you and I both work with women in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I have helped people up to their 80s find love and relationships and date and feel confident again. So whatever that story is that you're telling yourself, that you're repeating, that you've come to believe to be true, because the more you repeat it, the more that your actions will align with making that story true. And then your reality becomes a reflection of the actions and the beliefs. So if you are finding yourself stuck in that cycle, then you have to make a change. You have to shift, first of all, just the beliefs, and then we get into action. And that's exactly what I guide people to do, both on Dates and Mates, on my podcast every week, and especially through F the Fairytale. So thank you for having me here today.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I mean, we didn't even cover about overcoming single shame and dating on dating Sundays and all of these things. So I highly, highly recommend check out the show notes, get this book, follow Damona, listen to Dates and Mates. She's having like live events, book signings. She's everywhere. You can watch her on the TV. You are the real deal. And I think that if I were going to say, what should you look for in someone to listen to about dating? It's like, if they've been doing it a long time, or do they have credibility, and do they walk the talk, and are they living it? And that is you. And you are just an inspiration. So I just really appreciate that you took your precious time to come here. And thank you for going on the 3-year journey to get this book out here, because it really needed to be written by a powerful woman. So bless you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Marni. And you have always been an inspiration to me. So thank you for the work that you do. And I can't wait for your book.
Woo! All right, ladies. So here's the deal. Show notes. Get the book, F the Fairytale. Find your love evangelist. It must be Damona. You can follow me on Instagram, Marni Battista _. You can find me on Facebook. I'm so old fashioned. And you can just friend me and hear what we're up to on my side of the street. But above all, there have been so many nuggets in this episode. Share it with the friend who's feeling sad. Make it this year your year. And whatever you do, don't forget to life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.